All right, so welcome to this day in which we are going to discuss the double stick, as you can see. Now, when we talk about double stick, a lot of people associate that obviously with Filipino martial arts, and yes, there's an influence, but I want you to put your Kajukenbo Kempo hat, if you will, because we're actually going to start by discussing similar concepts, okay? So in the last video, we were doing some coordination, basic coordination with a pen, and this is going to be similar. So just so you have an idea, at the end, what we're going to manage to do is basically use this in a way in which we can coordinate by striking and redirecting comfortably. So if you remember for our lesson of blocking and counter, you can basically strike the strike or redirect the strike, right? Let's say that a strike is coming this way, I can strike the strike, or I can redirect the strike. And we also were talking about longer distance, then mid-range distance, and then shorter range distance. And then we were talking about a shorter range of that and then the floor. Now, if we're talking about how to react against those strikes, we basically have three ways, okay? And maybe we should have explained that in the past, but right now is better because it will actually make more sense once in which we're talking about transitioning. So when we talk about striking the strike like this and moving backwards, what we're doing is basically transitioning from a long to a longer range, okay? Remember the range in which you can strike my hand, but you cannot strike my head, or I can strike your hand, but I cannot strike your head, right? But we're transitioning between that long range to a shorter range is when we're going to be using striking the strike, but in this case, we're going to be a little bit closer. Remember the little circle that we were talking about. And then when we're transitioning into a shorter range in which now I can punch, but I can also elbow, I'm talking about using more the batting or even the strike like this. We're talking about transitioning to a control or more focus on we're focusing more in blocking the strike with our arm, okay? So again, we have three ways, if you will, of dealing with the strikes. One is a strike in the strike in long range, in which I will extend my strike, and the other one in which I'm going to remain in the same position. I'm going to strike the strike, but then I'm going to do the circle, if you remember that. Then the other one will be in which I am going to use the batting and I'm going to be blocking with my forearm. Okay, so those are the main three ways of dealing with that. And obviously we have the ground that I said that has its own rules, so we're not even going to discuss that right now. We're going to discuss about what happens when we're dealing with long range, and we're going to see what happens with these two sticks, okay? So we have the strike and the strike, as we said, and we also have the redirection. Now, before you even attempt to do this, I would actually encourage you to get some dexterity with the left hand. So far we have practiced with our right hand, but we're gonna do the same with the left hand. So, let's say that I have my left hand, but you have your right hand, and then the strike is coming this way. I can strike the strike, or I can redirect the strike, right? Same as if it's against number two, I can strike the strike, and then I can also redirect the strike, if the strike is coming this way. It's very simple. So, if I have two, and today we're just going to see angles 1 and 2, because this is complicated enough, and then we will be building up from this number 1 and number 2, and then we'll go what happens to number 3 and number 4 in a different video, okay? So let's say that I start with number 1, and number 1 is coming this way. I can strike, as I said before, but I can also redirect with this hand, right? So I can also strike the strike with this hand, and I can also redirect like that, okay? I can do the same against a number 2. I can strike the strike with this hand. This is what we were doing before, striking the strike. I can also strike the strike with this hand, striking the strike. I can redirect with this hand, redirecting with this hand, and I can also redirect with this hand. Now let's talk about redirecting with the other hand. It's pretty much the same thing. Try again the principles that we were discussing before in the prior videos when we were talking about striking the strike and redirecting, to not extend all the way through the hand. Now why? It's not that this is bad because you're going to reach some more length, right? You're going to take advantage better. Yes, in a way you can extend and reach. When you strike, that problem of hitting something hard and then getting that extra push, it's going to end up hurting your wrist. So to not getting or starting with the wrong foot, what you're going to do is basically maintain the same concept that we had before about like maintaining the straight wrist and striking all the way through and using your body mechanics to compensate. So how does it look? If I go slow with that hand, remember all the way through it looks like this, and all the way through from the other side looks like this. So again, all the way through like this, and all the way through like this. Now that is in terms of our wrist, what to do with our wrist and how to strike by keeping our wrist, as you see, bend and not extended, because of what I said before. Again, if you strike something hard, chances are that you're gonna end up hurting your wrist. Now, is there any time in which you're going to be extending? Yeah, of course, you can do temporary strikes by extending your wrist, or even by leaving your stick a little bit more loose, if you will, especially when we will discuss that in the future about abanicos, in which obviously you cannot leave that wrist without moving because it would be impossible to twist all the way through. You have to leave that a little bit more loose to be able to reach that position. But so since we're discussing now the striking the strike and the redirecting, we're going to keep the same principles that we discussed in the prior video, but now we're going to do it with the other hand. Again, we're going to strike the strike all the way through. We're going to redirect all the way through. We're going to strike the strike all the way through, and we're going to redirect all the way through. So those are just the first couple of exercises that you can do. Get used to using this stick, whether it is by putting this other stick to the ground or by using this stick on the side and then just playing around with this stick first. That is actually a mid-intermediate step. Don't necessarily have to go straight up from leaving this to the ground and just playing with one hand to, okay, now I'm going to manage both. You can also get used to having this stick on the other side and the other hand without actually doing anything. So you get used to having both sticks and see how your body reacts to it. Okay, so as I said before, let's imagine one strike is coming this way, I'm coming from this position, I'm coming back, striking a strike, and then I'm coming to this position. Now this stick is coming the same angle, and I'm going to redirect. Now redirecting to the other side, I'm going to put the stick here. I'm going to now answer against number 2, striking the strike first, striking the strike, and all the back to the same position. Now change. Now I'm going to redirect, and all the way back to the front. Okay, so once you have that, that's going to be easy. Why? Because all you're going to do pretty much is the same thing over and over again. So now, let's say that I receive an attack in an angle number 1. I can do 1 redirecting, or I can do 1 and 2 redirecting with 2 hands. Now, you're probably going to say, well, why would you waste your time by redirecting with both hands if you can redirect just with one hand and you achieved already what you wanted? This is a waste of time. Well, not really. If you get used to using this quickly, this can also turn into something else. This can also turn into one and striking towards the other hand just in case I receive a different angle of attack. Let's say that the other person has 2 sticks at the same time. There's an attack in number 1, and then there's an attack from the other side, 2. That way I can start training my sticks to defend not only one thing. Now, the reason why I said to you, put your Kajukenbo hat, if you will, is because that's no different than your 1-2 that we have seen so many times. Again, 1, 2. If you remember the last video, we were talking about the hand. Same thing, 1, 2. One can be to the side or 45 degrees down, and this is towards the back. So you redirect the fist out of the way. It looks like this from the front, 1, 2. You see, your head also moves. You don't rely ever only on your hands, okay? So if you look at it from the front, you're attacking this angle, 1, 2, out of the way. If you incorporate the footwork, 1, 2, out of the way. One more time, 1, 2, out of the way. Now you're gonna repeat the same on the other side. You're gonna redirect. Remember, we're just basically talking about redirecting or redirecting. So again, 1, 2, redirecting and go back. I'm gonna go back to the front so I don't hit the back. 1, 2, and go back. So one more time, 1, 2, and go back. Super slow, 1 and 2, and go back. So again, you're gonna bring these towards the other side. Got it? The idea is for you to redirect. Do you have to exaggerate and open? No. Once you achieve this is enough, and then you can counter immediately if you want, okay? So we have 2 redirections again, 1, 2, okay, and go back, and 1, 2, and go back. One more time, 1, 2, and go back, 1, 2, and go back. In this case, we are prioritizing the moving backwards rather than moving sideways. Why? Because again, this is not the same as a punch. Punch is easier to deflect and moving out of the way, but the stick is more dangerous and it can go through, and it's more difficult to calculate the trajectory of the strike, and you can be easily hit. So your first priority should always be getting out of the way, and that's it. So again, 1, 2, and 1, 2. And remember that even if this is redirecting, you have to make contact as if you were hitting the stick. It's not that, the difference is that you're not opposing the strike, but you have to actually strike the strike. Quote. So in this case, you have to make contact and to the stick. You cannot just pretend that this is going to be soft and enough. You have to actually make contact. So get used to really engaging your body and moving your body away. Imagine that you actually have to push the stick out of the way. Same from the other side, 1, 2, and that's it, okay? Now, once you have that, you have redirecting and redirecting. Now, let's say that you want to redirect and strike at the same time, okay? So, obviously, this is actually very common in Kajukenbo, the Canadian Kempo, in which a punch is coming and you redirect with one and then you strike with the other one. So, very simple. Redirect with this one and strike with the other one. Now, be careful with this. Why? If the strike is coming this way, obviously, you have to calculate very well that your other hand, the one that you're going to use to strike, is not going to end up in the middle of the trajectory of the strike, because otherwise you're going to basically punch the strike, if you will. So to avoid that, you're going to redirect, get out of the way, and then this is going to be in a different angle. And why? If I come to you in the same 45 degrees angle that you're using, chances are that, again, look at what happened. You're going to be hitting me, okay? You're going to be hitting me, and yes, I might actually hit you, but it's just an exchange. So to avoid that, this is going to come redirecting, and this is going to come in a different angle. You see? This is what I would advise you to do, 1, 2, so you can strike all the way through. Could you, if you're talking about the distance that we were discussing before, long range, we are striking the hand, but we cannot strike the head. Could we try to attack the hand in that position? That's what I was trying to say. It's very difficult, especially because it's coming too quickly. But if you switch your angle, you have a higher chance of succeeding and meeting with your stick the other person's hand. So I'm going to repeat. When I do this and I change the angle, my chances of hitting with my stick the other person's hand are a little bit higher than if I just meet with the same angle, okay? Chances are that yes, I might hit the other person, but I also will risk my own hand by exposing it that way, okay? So again, one more time, one, switch with the angle. If you do it at once, it should look like this. Okay, so the idea is to redirect and striking at the same time. I'm gonna repeat here. That's it, okay? So as I said before, try not to extend, at least in the beginning, your strike because it's gonna hurt your wrist. Keep your stick tight, okay? Now, you're gonna try that from the other side super slow because it's going to be more complicated because now you're engaging not only this, but the other hand is going to counter. So again, slow, 1, 2, and go back. 1, 2, and go back. Super slow, 1, redirecting, look, redirecting, and the other one countering by striking the hand. So again, 1, okay? 1. So it looks kind of like you're crossing over, okay? Before was this, and the other one now is this. Yes, technically you're crossing temporarily your arms, and that is actually not good, but remember that the reason why is because you're striking the other person's hand, and you're gaining some distance when you do it by moving backwards, okay? So we have 1, both redirecting, and now 1 redirecting, and the other one is going to counter by striking the other person's hand. Walk. And same from the other side. Walk. I'm going to repeat. Again. 1 and go back. Keep the same motion. I'm going to show you the both options that we have seen so far. 1, both redirecting in one side and the other side. And now the second option was redirecting and striking. One side, the other side, and go back, okay? Always go back to the neutral position, okay? Always go back to this position so it's easier for you to start the new one, okay? Now, third option, you're striking, and now I'm gonna be more mindful of the second strike. This is what I was discussing in the beginning. This can also train you for striking the other strike, in which you're gonna strike a number 1 with that hand, and I redirect, but you're gonna strike a number 2, if you will, with the other hand, meaning the attack is coming with the other stick on this side, and I strike. So again, 1, 2, one more time here, 1, 2, one more time, 1, 2, one more time, 1 and 2. I redirect and I strike all the way through. One more time, strike and redirect, okay? Or sorry, redirect and strike. Okay, one more time, redirect and strike. I can do the same thing from this side, redirect and strike, redirect and strike, redirect and strike. Keep in mind that both need to be what they are. I know it's gonna sound weird, but it needs to be a redirection and it needs to be a strike. So, redirect with the strength that needs to be, and strike with the strength that needs to be. So here, okay, so one more time, and same from the other side, one more time. So make sure, I'm a little bit concentrated for this space that I have, and I'm afraid of hitting, but the idea is this, I'm gonna face you here. This is strike, redirecting, and this is striking the strike. From the other side will be the same thing, here, redirecting and striking. One more time here. One more time here. If you want, the way that you can start in the beginning, although for me it's easier to do it in any position, ideally you're going to start with the stick that is in charge of the redirecting. It's going to be on top. The one that is in charge of striking the strike is on the bottom, on the armpit. So it's easier, 1 and 2. I change. Now the one that is doing the redirecting is the left. In this case, I put it high, redirect, and then the other one striking. So one more time, 1, 2, okay? So 1, 2, go to the front, 1, 2. Got it? Now, all I've done is basically use 2 hands. One is, well, because I don't have more, but basically all I have done is basically using a coordination based in 2 bits, okay? Can you do more? Of course, this is just the beginning. This is just learning how to block both strikes Before we would have one beat for the block and one beat for the counter. In this case, since we're engaging both hands, we have to have 2 beats for the block, and then we can have 1 or 2 for the counters. This is how it will look like in the future. 1, 2, 3, and 4. In this case, that will be a strike and a strike. 1, 2, let's imagine redirecting and striking, redirecting and striking, and counter back with a strike and a strike, for example. You can vary the levels in which you're going to strike. Now, before we even reach this, I would encourage you to work on these as many times as possible. And even if it sounds silly, pay the same amount of attention that you did to the right hand on the left hand, and start with the same simple steps that you did before. You can start by doing this. 1, that's redirecting. Here, striking the strike. Now against the 2, okay, redirecting and coming back, striking the strike and coming back. From the front, as I said before, redirecting, change, striking the strike. Okay, now from this position, I'm gonna switch, redirecting and change and striking the strike and go back. Once you feel comfortable, you can manage both. Before even you attempt, even if you feel comfortable, try to always use these as a props in the beginning. Don't even use it to do anything. Just do the same exercises with one stick just being held, in this case the right one, and do the same thing. Redirecting and go back, change, against and go back. Now, redirecting and go back, strike the strike and go back. Once you feel comfortable is when you can start using the other one. And again, I'm gonna repeat, both redirecting here, 1, 2. That's it, that's redirect and redirect. Now, redirecting from the other side, 1, 2, and go back. Redirecting plus strike. Remember, always a little bit of an angle, 1, 2. I'm gonna repeat, 1, 2, go back. Change, redirecting and striking, always with an angle, 1, 2, and go back, 1, 2, and go back. Now, redirecting and striking the strike against the second strike. Here, the one that's redirecting is on top, the one that is striking the strike on the bottom, 1, 2, and go back. Now I switch, redirecting and striking the strike, and go back to position, okay? Train like that, train as many times as possible, and in the future we're gonna discuss the counters and the other possibilities, but as a beginner I would say just be mindful of that. Keep in mind that you have to emphasize the not being there part more than anything else, especially because now you have to imagine that the person can continuously moving. So you have to get used to not only that, but basically being able to move more. So if I'm here and I go back, I have to be able to do the other move if the other person is moving twice. Now, before we go crazy with the footwork, I would say train that the way that you saw me doing right now, with just one foot moving back and moving back to the front. And after you feel comfortable with all these combinations I'm gonna show you, we're gonna incorporate all the other footwork. So maybe it's gonna be easier later, okay? So as usual, train safely, have fun, and I'll see you in the next video. Whoosh.